Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to work on one of my favorite parts of the whole process, which is aging the whole thing as a whole, as a complete character. We want everything to feel like it's part of the same thing. Right now, it doesn't feel that way because pretty much every single thing is in its own group with its own masks, and they're not really interacting with one another. However, we know in real life, things actually play a role with each other, right? So I'm going to create a new layer here. I'm going to group this layer, and I'm going to call this general aging, let's call it. Me and my dyslexia again. General, let's call it general wear. Perfect. So here's what happens. Everything that touches another thing will create a little bit of ambient occlusion. We already know that, and we already have the map of ambient occlusion. However, we're not using it until we use certain things like the generators and stuff. And I don't want that. I actually want to use the what's it called, the map to get everything to work together. So what I'm gonna do is the following. I'm gonna grab this black layer. I'm gonna keep only color and roughness. I'm gonna use a black color in this case. It's gonna be a really dark ambient occlusion. I'm gonna increase the roughness quite a bit because this is supposed to be places where things don't shine as much. And I'm gonna call this general AO, ambient occlusion. I'm gonna add a black mask, and to the black mask, I'm gonna add a fill layer. In the fill layer, I'm gonna look for ambient occlusion, and I should get the maps right here. So I'm gonna use the first one, which is the map for the character. See that? And it already tells me what areas are hidden from each other. And here in the general ambient occlusion thing, I'm just gonna go now into a levels levels layers. I'm gonna hit invert so that the darkness is on the areas that are closer together. And now we can push the values here to give a little bit more contrast to everything in my character. It's pretty much like doing a little bit of like a cell shading kind of thing. Now this of course is way too much, but I just want to show you how we can push this into a nicer looking character. So I'm gonna jump here into my color channel, and if I get rid of this ambient occlusion, everything looks really flat, right? By just introducing this, everything starts looking a little bit more three-dimensional. And this is a really nice tool because we can push this kind of things in a very nice, soft manner. So I'm gonna do something like this to push the ambient occlusion in. In this case, I'm not gonna use any generator to get rid of anything, pretty much, but I am gonna change this into like multiply. Why? Because I want colors to be blended with the rest of the element. I'm gonna move this all the way to 50%, and look at that. Just that little layer there gives a lot of extra depth to the character. Now it's doing some weird things in the face. That's fine. Right now we don't need to be careful about that. But imagine this character in game, like we're seeing it from this distance. Maybe it's like a first-person shooter or whatever. If we're seeing this guy from this distance, I would rather have this little extra ambient occlusion to punch the things than be without it. Okay, so that little ambient occlusion, really, really good. The next one is one of my favorite layers. This is something that I haven't seen a lot of people do, but I think it really brings something to the table. And that's something called a light layer. Now, if you look at like League of Legends, for instance, the characters in League of Legends have their textures hand painted, and they always paint a little bit more light on the top of the characters than they do on the bottom. That's something that happens pretty much with everything. Since the sun is one of the most common sources of light in the world, most of the objects you're gonna see will usually have more light on the top than they do on the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna introduce here a little bit of a detail to punch every single color on the character to a new level. So let me show you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add a new layer here. It's gonna be completely white, no roughness, no color, no metal, no nothing. I'm gonna make this a linear dodge layer. I'm gonna bring this down to about, let's say, 20%. So you can see that everything's kind of like washed out, like if it had been placed in like a chlorine bath or something. Well, I'm gonna add a black mask here. I'm gonna go into my generators, and I'm gonna add a light generator, which is this one right here. The light generators works with these two little knobs, which you can control to kind of like shine the texture into the character. And what I'm gonna do is very simple. I'm just gonna move both of this so that the light's coming all the way from the top. So I'm gonna have this at 270 and the other one at 0. And now you can see that the light is actually coming from the top. Now let's try a different color. Let's see if we can find a different, because I do feel like this white it's not exactly what I'm looking for. Is it completely white though? Oh, it's not. Let's move it to completely white. Let's go to linear dodge. There we go. So now what this is doing, it's adding to every single surface that's pointing up, it's adding a little bit of an extra light into it. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna lower this even more. Let's do to like 10. No, I think even that is way too much. So 5 is a little bit better. Let's take a look at the character. So from this to this. And again, it's just a little bit of an extra detail to make things shine a little bit more. It might break down, or this effect might break down if we have a lighting situation where light is not coming from the top. But again, that's really, really difficult to have. Most of the times you're gonna have light coming from the top, and this really helps everything shine a little bit better. So that's it for the dirt, and that's it for the element right here. The last one that we need to do, that actually we're gonna do on the boots right here, is the following. I'm gonna grab my cape here, I'm gonna jump over here, and technically, since all of these are similar, yeah, see that? Ambient occlusion and a little bit of light here on the top, so that's pretty good. Now the last one we need is, I need a little bit of darkness coming from the bottom, because again, the food and the cloths and everything will create a little bit of shadows on the back, so light doesn't come as easily up that like the way it does coming from the top in the character. So what I'm trying to say here is that we need everything in the bottom side of the character to be slightly darker than the rest of the character. So what I'm gonna do here, and just in this specific case, I'm gonna add one more layer here, black layer, nothing but color, and I'm gonna add a black mask, and I'm gonna add a generator. In this case, the generator is not gonna be a light, because we can't shine a light from the bottom. It's actually gonna be a where is it? 3D linear gradient. There we go. So what the 3D linear gradient does, it will try and look at one direction, and it will move the direction to another position. So in this case, I want the direction to be the other way. See that? So it's coming from the bottom and it's going all the way to the top. And I can control how far up I want this to go, which is going to be roughly halfway up. So something like that. And of course, this is not going to be like this. I'm going to multiply. I'm going to reduce this quite a bit. But it's just a way for me to darken the textures on the bottom side of the character. And that's going to make the top side of the character pop a little bit more, because rather than having everything in the same tone, things are going to be slightly darker here on the bottom. Now, the only issue here is that I don't want the backs to be affected by it, and I don't want this to be affected. I only want this side over here to be affected by it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a paint layer, and I'm going to go into my polygon fill, and I want all of these guys to be out of it, same as these guys. There we go. So now this only affects the boots. So everything gets slightly darker there on the boots. Now, as you can see, the cape here should be slightly affected, right? So I'm going to copy this layer back to its original position here in the first set of textures. And that should give me a little bit of darkness here on the back side of the layer. So again, this is a way for me to bring the tones of the lower side of the character down in such a way that it makes it pop more. Now you can see that there's a little bit of overlap there. That's fine. Remember, this piece right here is a separate piece of geometry, so we can what's the word? We're gonna be eventually. It could eventually be animated, so that's important. And that's it. Like, this is pretty much it. I'm gonna change the lights to a neutral light, because I think this one is a little bit warm. So let's go to like I really like this Studio 5 light. Yeah, so these colors, see, they match really close to what we have here. Every single color. So we're in a really good position, guys. Everything is textured now. Everything is nicely textured. And we can now jump into one of my favorite parts for character, which is the skin. We're gonna be texturing the skin in such a way that's gonna look really, really realistic. Now, you can see that for the skin, we lost a lot of the detail that we had on on the normal map, that's fine. We're gonna recover some of that later down the line. But just to let you know. Now, the reason I don't like using studios so much is because the metals don't react very nicely to them. You could, of course, download your own HDR, a studio HDR, and texture that way. I'm probably gonna do it for the next video. But for now, we can just jump to like something like that. And look at this. Wouldn't you like to play a game with this guy? He looks really cool. I like the different tones that he has. There's some nice distinction here and there. Of course, when everything is assembled, it's gonna look even better. So that's always a plus. I think I do want to add one more thing though before I close this video. Let's see how we're doing on time. Yeah, fine. We're doing good. So I'm gonna add the scratches to the metal because I think that's gonna really give it another element here. So I'm gonna add one line here. It's just color and metal. It's gonna be a very bright metal. Let's add a black mask. Let's add a fill layer, and let's add scratches. Grunge paint scratch, no. Grunge scratch, there we go. That's good. Let's probably increase the scale a little bit. There we go, so it's nicer. And we're gonna invert this, of course. Invert, where's the invert? There we go, invert. And change the balance. Just a little bit there. Now I'm gonna multiply. I'm gonna create a new layer here. Let's do a generator and let's do a dirt layer because I don't want any areas that have dirt to be affected by it. So let's control first where we don't want any scratches. So let's say those areas right there, and we're gonna multiply this. Or actually, in this case, I think we have to divide this. Or that's not multiply, it's linear dodge. Yeah, linear dodge this. No, it is multiply. Or actually, the other way around. We need to bring this down. So in order to move this down, we need to click or just move this down like that. There we go. And then this one's gonna be multiplied by that area. And we need to invert the dirt. There we go. So now scratches are gonna be everywhere except for those little crevices there. And we're gonna get some really cool looking scratches pretty much all over the place. Now, there might be a couple of areas where we don't want any of them, so we just need to add another paint layer. Let's turn this off. For instance, the chest insignia. Oh, it's over here. Oh, okay, so the issue is, since we're using instant materials, we won't be able to do that because it has to remain that way. The only way we could fix that is if we did this as a separate layer. So I'm gonna keep it like that for now. And that's it. This is it, guys. I'm gonna stop the video right here, and in the next one, I'm gonna start working on the skin, which is gonna be a very, very cool process that I'm gonna show you. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next video. Bye-bye.